Everybody, what's up? Welcome back to the Extra Channel. If you're back, if not, welcome to the Extra Channel. Today we're going to be doing a little talk about NFL sports talk. Okay, the playoffs are coming up, and I figure, you know what, I'll get started now. That way, by the time next season comes, I'll be ready to dive in head first into all the action. Okay, so be sure to subscribe. Be ready for all that. Plus, we got the postseason coming up. We got other sports to go over. There's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming on all the channels, so just be sure to check everything out. Okay. So I want to first start by talking about the Bears. This is my favorite team, the Bears, okay? It was probably the worst decision I ever made in my life. So the way I became a Bears fan was when they were in the Super Bowl. In 2006, I think, they were playing the Colts. And I needed to pick a team. I was about 8 years old. I didn't have a team yet. And being from a state that doesn't have a mainline team on its own, a lot of people out here just kind of pick, and so I was at that time where it was my turn to choose, and I didn't want to pick the Super Bowl winning team. I felt like that would be such a big bandwagon thing to do. Even at 8, I didn't want to be a bandwagon fan, so I figured, you know what, let me at least pick the losers of the Super Bowl, so that way, if they're good later on, I'll have them. And it was a horrible decision. The Bears haven't been good since. Personally, I don't think they've had a winning season since then. I know everybody except Matt Nagy, I'm pretty sure, had a losing record. And I think the only reason Matt Nagy didn't, I think he might have been 2 games down, not 2 games up. But anyway, let's just get into this season, because it's been very disappointing, right? I just want to go over the Bears first of this video because it's the most fresh on my mind, especially after losing this last week to Seattle 6-3. 6-3. Okay, the best situation a rookie quarterback has ever been in, with Keenan Allen, and we have DeAndre Swift, we have DJ Moore, we drafted Rome Odunze, who you can tell he's a good player. He can catch the football. But I think the biggest problem that we had is the expectation of what was going to happen. I think when you're a bad team, you have to be ready to stay bad, even if you get good players. I think Cincinnati was a bad team for a long time, even with Andy Dalton. But when they got Joe Burrow, they got to the Super Bowl quick. And I think that when you have good players, I think that winning is easier. But I think that comes from the coaches too. Because I think you have to put together a winning formula for your players to go out and execute on. Okay? So, starting this season, winning all 4 preseason games, I thought it was great. I thought this season, you know what? They did everything right. So having all the things set and ready and everything's correct, you figure going into a season where last year you were 7-10 and you could have been 9-8 and you could have done a lot better, and you had a quarterback that's been underwhelming, and I think everybody knew it, and you had a great defense. You come out and you do worse. You do worse. Now, the season started great. Let's move over to the schedule, okay, and some of these results here. I wanted to bring this up because I think it's important. I think it's important to realize where the season went, okay? And I think it started not necessarily even at the Commanders game, because I think, even though they were demoralized, I think if they would have came back against the Cardinals, the season could have been different. But let's start up here at the top. Okay, we got the Titans game. Can't see the mouse, but we're starting at the top. We got the Titans. An easy win. They're a bad team, okay? We're a bad team. We should have beat them. The Texans, losing by 6 hurts, but CJ Stroud. What are you going to do? That team was still good. They didn't have as many O-line problems as they are now going into the playoffs. But then we have the Colts. Okay, now the Colts game, I think, should have been a dub. I think the Colts are not a very good team. I think after they lost yesterday to the Giants, they showed everybody that. They showed everybody that the Colts are a bad team. Especially letting them score 45. I mean, I don't think they're trying anymore, the Colts. I think they're just, I don't know what's going on there. Okay, but we lost to them, and I think that was very hard. If we play them week 13 instead of week 3, I think we win every time. But I think since it's so early in the season, I think teams are trying hard, really hard, until maybe week 10, and they realize, okay, the playoffs aren't in sight, or this is gone, or we have some injured players. But going against the Rams the week after and winning that game, I think, is what got us to play so well in the next 2. I think going against a team that's obviously superior, that was in the NFC second round last year and played their asses off. against the Lions. I'm pretty sure they played the Lions, or it might have been the 49ers. I really can't remember who they played last year, but I know it was one of those games where you're literally watching Matt Stafford throw the ball, and there is no doubt that he's one of the better quarterbacks to ever play. I mean, he was just so good at the end of the year last year, but beating them early in the season when they didn't have Puka or Cooper Kupp or their whole O-line, it was basically a preseason game against these guys, and we needed to win it, and we did. And I think that's why going into London to play against the Panthers, we beat the bricks off of them, regardless if they were good or not. I think that shows the capacity that we have as a team to score 36 points going overseas. It's not a comfortable situation. Playing the Jaguars again, winning that game as well right after the Panthers was huge. Okay? Going into the bye week. Now, that's something that this doesn't show right here. In between these two games, these boxes that are lighting up right here, we had a bye week, the Bears. Tell me why, coming out of the bye week, the time when coaches and players have extra time to not only rest and get healthy, you have more time to game plan. You have more time to look at film. You have more time to come up with plays. You have more time to come up with setups, with everything. You have more time to basically script how you want the game to go. Okay, now coming in against the Commanders were a great team, even already early in the season. People knew this kid is good, Jaden Daniels. And playing against them and losing on a Hail Mary, I know everybody says, this is where the season turned around and this is where things went wrong, but I think this is where the players gave up on the coaches. I think when the players are playing so well and they're winning games and they're doing everything they can to win these games, I think it's really hard for these players to say, we just got fucking Hail Married on for no reason. I know it was Tyreek Stevenson. We can go into that another day. He didn't have to touch the ball. He should have stayed out of the play. They wouldn't have caught it. But the thing that's true regardless is that after they lost on a Hail Mary, all of the players said, these coaches suck. Plain and simple. These coaches suck. We win these games with good coaches. Keenan Allen wins that game on the Chargers. DeAndre Swift wins that game on the Eagles. DJ Moore might even win that game on the Panthers. Or he might win that game with Justin Fields being on the Bears the year before. But losing on that Hail Mary put a really sour taste in a lot of people's mouth. And I think that's when the DJ Moore, Caleb Williams drama started. Right? Going on to play the Cardinals right after, that's why we got smacked. 29-9, it's purely because of the Hail Mary. Now, I think going to the Cardinals after going to the Commanders and losing didn't help anything. But the next week, regardless of the record at this point, we're now 4-5 after the Cardinals loss, or 4-4 after the Cardinals loss. Okay, we have 4 wins, 4 losses. The season is very much in play. I don't think that there's very many things that we could do wrong to have a really bad season here. Okay, losing to the Patriots 19-3, I think is what put the season away. The first time, pretty much all year, where there was an uphill climb for the Bears. I think, let's say we start the season 6-2 instead of 4-4. I think we finish the season 9-8. Okay? But after the Patriots game, let's just scroll down a little bit here, so that way everything's kind of centralized again, okay? After we lose to the Cardinals and the Patriots, we're 4-5, and we play the Packers. Now, this is our first divisional game of the year. We're playing the Packers. The Packers are showing that they're a good team again. Even Jordan Love, after he got hurt early on in the season, he's coming back and he's showing like, hey, I'm here. And we lost that game on the last second, blocked. Now, hold on. It wasn't a missed field goal. Please understand, this field goal was not missed by our kicker. This field goal was blocked on the last play of the game to lose the game. So now we're 4-6 instead of 5-5. Okay? And then we go play the Vikings the next week. Okay, another divisional game. We're at home for the 3rd week in a row. And we lose on the last play, a blocked field goal to go into overtime. Okay, now the Packers right now are 11-6. and the Vikings are 13-3. Well, or 11-5, excuse me. The season hasn't ended yet. Both of these games, if we win them, we are 6-5. The Packers and the Vikings have one more loss. Okay? Now let's go down to the next week. This is the Thanksgiving game against the Lions, and I think everybody saw what the players were already seeing after the Commanders game. And I think the organization couldn't lie to themselves any longer. And they finally let go of this guy, Eberduce. I mean, he was bad. I mean, I'm sorry, but who? If we don't get Pete Carroll or Vrabel, excuse me, or anybody good, Ben Johnson, if we get somebody with basically a handwritten note for a resume, we will be the worst team in the NFL. Again, we will. But playing against the Lions on Thanksgiving really showed that the Bears aren't a bad team. They're not. Because I think, the next time we played the Lions and we lost so heavily and so handedly, when the Lions had more injuries, just shows that the Bears players over the stretch have given up. Okay, but this Thanksgiving game, we lost by one drive, essentially. The end of the game, we were in scoring position to win the game, to tie the game, to go into overtime. Just the same thing the week before against the Vikings. We lose that game as well. And at this point, we would have been 7-5. And all three of our division rivals would have had one more loss, which helps us for seeding purposes. Then we play the 49ers and we lose. We lose bad. I think, everything culminated, we lose really bad. I think that's what happens. But I think if we beat the Vikings, or, we go into overtime and we lose against the Vikings and the Lions, I think that we end up going 1-1. Or maybe we go 2-0 against one of these division rivals. Let's say maybe we get the Lions number, because we almost beat them on Thanksgiving. At this point in the season, we would have been, a plus 500 team. And I think then going into the Seattle game, it was the only time where the Bears could have had a game to win. It was the first time since the Patriots game, all the way back in week 11, where they had a genuine chance to win the game before the game started. And I think losing 6-3 on prime time, literally screaming at my wife, turn it off, I can't do it. I literally couldn't watch. I was getting so angry just watching the ineptitude of these players and the coaching that losing to the Seahawks 6-3, I think, just kind of cements the fact that the Bears as an organization is probably the worst in the NFL. And this is my favorite team. I mean, I love the Bears. I got Bears helmets. I'm getting a Bears jersey. I mean, I got everything. I love these guys. I've been watching them since I was 8 years old. Good or bad, Jay Cutler, Justin Fields. All the coaches we've had, all the ups and downs. I think that it's really important to make the point that the Bears are no better than the Browns. And I think the only difference on why the Browns are the worst franchise in the NFL versus the Bears, purely because the Browns went 0-16. There's nothing else I can say at this point that doesn't make the Bears the worst organization in football. I mean, there's no ownership. These people are 90 plus. I mean, they're not doing anything. They're banking. Okay, Ryan Poole is the GM, and these guys that are the president. I can't remember I can't remember who's who or who's got what role, but the fact that the president and the GM are literally randoms, basically like business guys, basically just trying to get them a new stadium, trying to get them some more funding, really shows, hey, we don't know what we're doing around here. And I think even before Caleb played his last season at USC and saying like, hey, we got this pick. We have this pick. It could become the potential number one pick. And they say, we're going to take Caleb Williams. He's the number one pick. I think they made their own bed. I think coming into the season, I think everybody knew, no matter how good their roster was, how much talent they had for a rookie quarterback, no matter the best situation, I think everybody knew in the back of their minds that this is the Bears. I mean, I've never seen the Bears get more coverage in my life in one season than this season. Even the year they won the Super Bowl, or went to the Super Bowl, excuse me, and they did nothing. I want to say less than nothing, because the wins at the beginning of the season are now so meaningless that beating 3 horrible teams and beating 1 injury-riddled team, I would rather be 0-16 going into the last week of the season. Because I think being 4-12 hurts our draft. It hurts our draft chances. Especially after having these picks, we need to have an O-line. I mean, that's, people want to say that the coaching is the problem, but I think coaching the players we have is a big problem too. I think the players we have are not quality. I think that there is 7 good players on the Bears, and 5 of them or 3 or 4 of them they just got in the last season. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift, Caleb Williams, none of them were Bears until they got brought to the Bears. But if you have Montez Sweat, if you have the homie that's married to Simone Biles, if you have good players, you can do good things. That's why they won 7 games last year. And I think this year only winning 4 shows less of a problem on Caleb, less of a problem on their skill position players, less of a problem on their play calling, on their playbook themselves. I think after you fire Matt Eberflus and the team gets worse, I think it comes to a point to where there's nothing there good. There's nothing there that's good. And I think that being the worst organization in football has consequences. And I think a 4-13 or a 5-12 season after getting the first pick, the 9th pick, a top 10 running back, a top 20 wide receiver, and another top 20 wide receiver, I think all of it together just shows, hey, the Bears will be bad. And we are the bad Bears. And, guys, I think that's going to be it for this segment. I got to run. I got to go to lunch, or I'm at lunch, so I'll be back here. It should be a little darker outside here for part 2. It's about 5 hours later. It's about 6 hours later after recording the first part of this video. And I kind of want to step into something a little different, kind of more of an opinion piece, less going over stats and wins and losses, okay? So, kind of going to the Bill Belichick UNC hiring and stuff. I know that was a couple weeks ago, old news, of course, but I just want to kind of dive into the dynamic that him and Tom Brady's career have kind of taken. And I really think that Bill Belichick taking this job has to do with Tom Brady. I really do. I don't think that he's just going to college to be a college coach. I just don't think so. So let me just give you the background. Let me tell you why. So, Tom Brady goes. He's the 4th string quarterback after he gets drafted, and he only goes in to start after he's moved his way up, and the starting quarterback gets hurt. So, of course, he goes on to be the best quarterback ever. He wins all these championships, 2 dynasties, and after all the turmoil and all the bad blood and never really getting along with his coach, like you see a lot of these guys do, like Tony Dungy and Peyton Manning. Are you kidding me? Those guys were like, they went hand in hand, right? They were buds at least, just, they never got along, it seemed like. And it seemed like at the time, Tom went to Tampa to show that, hey, I'm the guy. I'm not just Mr. Irrelevant if I don't have Bill Belichick. I'm not just the 4th string guy if I'm not on the New England Patriots. Can't speak today. I can't. But I think the biggest thing that Tom proved is that he's the best quarterback to do it. We'll see what Pat Mahomes does. He's really right on track, but I think that he proved that I can do it. I'm the guy. He went to a new team and a new area and a new division completely, and he won the Super Bowl. I went to 2. I mean, I just don't think that Tom Brady had to go and prove it, but I think that in his mind, he didn't have a choice as a competitor. And I think now, going back to Bill Belichick and going to North Carolina, I think this is kind of the same move here. I think after Tom left New England and he had those 3 bad seasons, I think it really hurt his confidence. Hurt his confidence as a person, not necessarily a coach. I think you have the accolades. He won 2 Super Bowls with the Giants, won 6 more with the Patriots. I think no doubt he's great, the best accoladed coach out there. But I think he started to feel like maybe I'm just a Cleveland Browns coach without Tom Brady. Maybe I'm nothing special without Tom Brady. So I think now him going to North Carolina is him saying, hey, I don't need Tom Brady. And I don't need an NFL team to take me. I don't need a handout, basically. Especially since nobody hired him last year. I think it was very important for him to say, hey, I'm a good coach. I'm not a good coach for Tom Brady. Or I'm not a good coach in New England. I'm not even a good coach in the NFL. I'm a good coach. And I think with 2 guys like Pete Carroll and another guy, Jim Harbaugh, who played both sides of the coin. They were in college, they were in the NFL. They both came and they were both very successful on both ends. Both national championship winners. Both, I don't want to say Super Bowl winners because Jim Harbaugh hasn't won a Super Bowl. He's been to a Super Bowl in the NFL as a coach. So I think Bill Belichick's legacy, not only from Tom Brady, but from those 2 guys, his legacy was starting to fade. And I'm not trying to say anything weird, but I just don't think anybody has respected Bill Belichick since after the first year that Tom left. And I think him going to North Carolina is telling everybody, hey, I'm here to prove that I'm the guy. I'm going to come to college and I'm going to win the same way these guys do because I'm the guy. And, not having to draft, I think maybe he'll like recruiting. He can go and pick who he wants, not who's available, right? Especially with NIL, I think now it's more NFL branded. It's so easy to see Bill going over there and just saying, hey, I can give you this much. He knows how to talk numbers. He doesn't know how to talk scholarship and benefits. And, that's just not his avenue, right? So I don't think 5 years ago, after Tom left, that college was a good choice for Bill in his mind at all. But I think over the last couple of years, he's seeing like, hey, I can go get somebody off the transfer portal, aka the trade block. I can go get them off a trade if they don't want to come here and play for me. Especially he can build the best. I think North Carolina is going to be probably the best defense there's been in a long time in college because of Bill Belichick, and he can get whatever players he wants, right? But I think really that's what fueled his move, was going and saying like, hey, I am him. I am him. It's kind of like a husband and wife that are married for a while and they get divorced, and like the wife's already cheating and the husband's like just fed up. He just doesn't care anymore, basically. And it's like the hot wife went to Florida to live out her new dream with her. Everything was already set up. And for Tom, and like it was a smooth transition. But for Bill, he kind of ended up in the 1-bedroom. He ended up in the cold New England by himself, no help. I mean, he had his, Matt Patricia is the offensive coordinator because Josh McDaniels went to the Raiders and got fired in half a season. I really, really think that he was the guy that was like, okay, I think I need to prove it. I think I need to prove that I'm that guy. Tom didn't do it for me. I did it for myself. And he was along for the ride with me. Not that Tom is not good. I mean, he proved himself. But I think now Bill's proving himself. Monday Night Football. If the Lions win this game, which they really should, against San Francisco, they're just not doing the best. So let's do a little pre-game prediction. And then we'll come back after the game. Try and watch as much of it as I can. Got the wifey coming home. Got to make dinner. we got a lot going on. But regardless, I think that the Lions will win this game. And the only reason I think that is purely because San Francisco all year, regardless if they have people healthy, if they have people hurt, their special teams have been hurting them. I think that there's not very many chances that you get to win games with 3 points, and I think that they've lost a lot of games because of 3 points. They're just very vulnerable. I think that a lot of these guys have lost a step due to injury. Debo, maybe Kittle. As good as they are, I think when you're just a little bit slower, I think it's hard to catch the ball regardless. I think it shows in like Devontae Adams. Like, he's getting older. He's maybe slower. He's not as quick, not as elusive. So I think, there's some days where he'll have, 8 receptions, 110 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's great. And then there's a lot of days now where it's like 2 receptions, 36 yards. It's like, please, we need this ball. Just catch it because I know you have good hands. But, I just don't think these guys on San Francisco are playmakers anymore. And I think this year really showed that no matter how good your roster is, because they've proven themselves that they're great players, pretty much all of them. If they're not all together, if it's not one big cohesive unit, without McCaffrey, this season's just been done for. And I think it just shows the biggest hole they have. Like, without rushing, now Brock Purdy looks tired, bro. He looks weak. He looks tired. I think it's really easy to throw passes when you're only throwing 4 or 5 a drive out of 15 plays. But if you turn around, now you're throwing 8 to 10 times a drive, or you're getting 18 play drives that only end in 3 points because you can't move the ball. I think it hurts. And for the Lions, I think no matter how many injuries they have, I think their offense is so good that when they lost to the Bills 46-42, when they lost that game, I think it showed that unless that game, Bills-Lions, is the Super Bowl, unless the Bills and the Lions are the Super Bowl, I don't think there's a way that the Lions lose. And this is coming from a Bears fan. I hate the Lions. I think they're the worst NFC team. Come on, 0-16 as well. We were talking about the Browns earlier. But I just don't see a way they lose. I just think they're too versatile. And unless Goff gets hurt and he can't throw the ball anymore, kind of the same way Brock Purdy did that year that they lost to the Eagles before the Super Bowl, I just don't see a way that they lose. I just think Jared Goff is like the invincible quarterback this year. Like, he's just, not missing. He had perfect games. How many quarterbacks in the history of the NFL have perfect games throughout the entire game? Perfect games. It's not like it was 18 for 18, 121. So they're getting like 4 to 6 yards per pass. He's throwing 18 for 18 with 260 and 3 tutties. Like, this guy is literally unreal. And watching Matt Stafford growing up, to now watching Jared Goff, it looks like Matt Stafford turned into Jared Goff, and Jared Goff turned into Matt Stafford. So, Matt Stafford was never good in the beginning of his career until he left that team and got some confidence, and then he went off. And I don't think Jared Goff was as good as he is now in the early part of his career because he didn't have confidence. They literally let him go after going to a Super Bowl. They didn't want him there. And I think, if you're in a relationship with a woman, if you have a bad job, if you have, let's say you even work with a shitty bank, if you're not wanted, if people don't show that you have value to them as a person, as an employee, as an entity, why would you want to stay? And how would you improve and be better? Think about what Tua was saying about Brian Flores down in Miami. It hindered his ability to be a good quarterback, and until he left and Mike McCarthy Mike McCarthy. What? What's his name? Mike McDaniel. Excuse me. I mean, until Mike McDaniel became coach and started starting Tua every game, Tua wasn't as good as he was either. He just didn't have the confidence, the ability. So I think that Jared Goff going into this playoffs, it's his time to shine, basically. Like, this is what he's been waiting for his entire career. And after, if he wins the Super Bowl or he goes to the Super Bowl and loses, there's a high chance he only plays 2 or 3 more years and retires on his own. It won't be like a Kirk Cousins or an Aaron Rodgers where they get hurt so bad and try and come back and they are so much worse that they have to give up. I think he'll be like, oh, I'm done. You know, I did what I wanted to do. I proved myself to everyone. I rebuilt a franchise, and that's it. It's the end of my career. There's nothing more I can do. What do you want me to do? Win more Super Bowls. Well, okay, I've done that. Win MVPs. Well, you know, if he wins the Super Bowl, you know, it'll be hard-pressed to not give him an MVP after, you know, if he plays just as well. I think that's the hard thing about, you know, the regular season MVP is that it's you don't give it to the guy who really played the best the whole year. You give it to the guy who played best for the first 17 games. The ones that matter less. You know, each playoff game matters twice as much as a regular season game. And the division championship is 3 times as important. And then the Super Bowl is 4 times as important. 5 times. I mean, that's what everybody's going for is a Super Bowl. So, I mean, just in those playoff games, you have 15 games worth of intensity, dedication, effort, compared to playing Carolina, playing the Bears twice a year as the Lions. I mean, I just don't see a way, even with all the injuries. Their best player, I mean, they're literally their franchise player before Amon-Ra St. Brown popped off, before Jared Goff became Jared Goff 2.0, because he was a killer out in St. Louis, in Los Angeles. You know, I really think, like, hey, I think the Lions can do it. I know everybody's saying, like, oh, well, it'll be the Bills, or, you know, the Vikings are coming, but if the Vikings don't have to play the Lions, I think the Lions win. And I just don't think there's very many teams that can beat the Vikings, maybe other than Tampa Bay, who already beat the Lions. So, you know, unless something crazy happens tonight and going forward, I just don't see how the Lions lose. I mean, even going into next year, like most of the time, you know, there's a little bit of turnover after a really great season. There's guys that are on low contracts that aren't able to get money with the Lions. It's just like, hey, look, you know, this is the situation we're in. This is why we're winning. Because your contract being 3.8 instead of 10.8 lets us go and get 2 more guys for 3.8 million. But if you're 10.8, now you have to do 3 guys' work, and now we're done. Now we have empty holes in our roster that we need to fill. What happens tonight on Monday night? If the Lions lose, let's say for some reason they lay an egg and they're just tired or their injuries catch up to them, and the Vikings are the number 1 seed at the end of the night, I think that, you know, there might be a different conversation to be had, especially if they lose to a San Francisco team that's been, I mean, I don't want to say underwhelming, because underwhelming would still show that they're a good team, but, I mean, they didn't even sniff the playoffs this year. I mean, I don't know how you go from Super Bowl, NFC Championship, Super Bowl, to now last in your division behind the Cardinals, Seahawks, and Rams. Anyway, see you after the game. Gotta have the mic closer up. The first part of the video is pretty quiet. But after a very long game on Monday Night Football, I mean, the Lions came out on top purely because of Jake Moody. I mean, that guy could not hit a kick to save his life. 2 missed field goals and a missed extra point at the end of the game. That's 7 points, folks. And the Niners only lost by 6. So, you know, if that guy does something, you know, the game is very, very different tonight, and the Lions maybe aren't the number 1 seed anymore. You know, they play each other next week for the number 1 seed in the NFC, and I just think it's actually insane. It was a great game. all the crazy trick plays and just all the different schemes that Detroit has. They are definitely the most cohesive team. They have the best culture for sure. You can just tell. It is unmatched out there on the field. The 49ers look better than I was expecting, but that game was pretty good. A lot higher scoring than I was expecting, especially just because, man, I just figured it would be a slower game. The turnovers from Brock Purdy definitely hurt, but like I said, I mean, if Jake Moody hits his kicks, they win the game. Or Detroit has to do something vastly different. They have to go for less 4th and 3s and 4th and 4s and 4th and goals, and I mean they got balls on them, and I think that's why they're 14 and 2 when just a few years ago, you know, it's like they were saying they started 1 and 5 in 2022, and since then they went 34 and 10 in the regular season. I mean that is just insane. That is insane. That is 13 and 3 seasons back to back to back. So I think the Lions kind of have their destiny written for them now. They just have to go and get it. I think as long as they can outlast these last 4 games, I don't see any other team putting up 40 every single week without fail. Doesn't matter how good the defense is, how bad people play. They get by. They kind of have like that Chiefs thing right now where they get by. They're gonna win the game just because they want to win the game more than you do, and that's just what happens. I mean, 2 interceptions from the Lions, from that one guy. I cannot remember his name. I don't know names very well, but I mean, just it looked like Brock Purdy couldn't see him, and he was right there. I mean, the middle of the field was completely open, and it had one white jersey in it, and it was his. And it seemed like he was so tunnel visioned both times that he just threw the ball right to him. So, I think that it's good for the 49ers to have this season. That way maybe they don't pay Brock Purdy this offseason. I hope they don't, because he's not playing well enough. That's another back-to-back-to-back 2 interception game. I mean, without those, if those are 14 points and Moody hits his kicks and Detroit still scores 40, they win 60-40. So, it's just this team could be good, but the Lions are just better. The Lions are better, and that's, being a Bears fan, that hurts to say, but the Lions are just better. Quick recap, I mean, there's not much to say. I mean, it's the end of the season. I think Detroit is just going to walk away with it now, as long as next week they can beat Brian Flores' defense. They got it locked up. So, thanks for watching this first episode. If you can, please do like the video. Please subscribe. We got more coming. Going to be talking through the playoffs and stuff like that. So, be sure to check out some more content and check out all the other channels too.